Welcome learners to the course on MOS and MOSFET. I have already mentioned that this is a series of 6 lectures, and today we are going for the lecture 4. Myself, Orpon Deashi, from the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering in RCC Institute of Information Technology, Kolkata, India, welcome you all to the lecture series on MOS and MOSFET. So far, in the first 3 lectures, we have completed the MOS capacitor part. In lecture 1, we have covered the physics of MOS capacitor, the band diagram, unbiased condition, and under different biasing conditions. We have analyzed the charge voltage characteristics for accumulation, flat band, depletion, and inversion conditions. Also, we have analyzed the capacitance voltage profile for both high frequency and low frequency conditions. For my lecture 2 and 3, which are already available in YouTube, you will find the detailed derivation of charge profile starting from Poisson's equation, as well as you will find the analysis of capacitance under different conditions in lecture 3. And we have said at that time that the inversion condition has some real significance when we will go for the design of transistor and its consequent analysis. And we have stopped up to that part where we have mentioned also that both the weak and strong inversions have significant effects for different operations and important for various sort of applications. And we have stopped there, and we said when we have start again the physics of MOSFET, that is the transistor part, we said that we will go towards the inversion recapitulation, as well as we will try to progress based on the earlier concept, and we will move towards the electrical characteristics of MOSFET. So up to that we have stopped our journey of MOS capacitor, and we have said that as far I remember that MOS capacitor is a 2-terminal device, whereas MOSFET is a 4-terminal device. And we said that when we will go into the details of MOSFET, we will analyze why it is a 4-terminal device. And we have also mentioned that once you have go for the circuit level application of MOSFET, you will find that instead of 4-terminal it will work as a 3-terminal. And we said that how a 4-terminal device can be converted into a 3-terminal device, we will go for their physics and corresponding the modification in the circuit level counterpart. So up to that we have stopped our discussion in our lecture 1, and we said that in our lecture 2 and 3 I will proceed for the MOS capacitor, and from the lecture 4 onwards we will again back to the case of say MOSFET, and we will progress according to that. Having said that, we have made our journey for 2-terminal MOS device, that is the MOS capacitor, and we have also mentioned that the MOS and MOSFET are not same, they are not synonymous. MOS is a capacitor, whereas MOSFET is a transistor. So today, at the beginning of lecture 4, we will not going into the mathematical formulation of different electrical properties of MOSFET. Rather, I will try to stick into the understanding of the physics of MOSFET and how a MOS capacitor can be converted into MOSFET, what will be the biasing condition, and so many things we have to understand in a great detail, because all the applications and all the properties what we will derive in next lecture 5 and 6 will be totally based on the concept what I will discuss in the lecture 4 today, and you will try to remember and brush up your knowledges, because once I am going to the mathematical derivations I no longer have a time to go for again brushing the knowledge of the physics of semiconductor devices. That's not possible. Actually, this is a very short time interval, so we have to complete the course as soon as possible. And so I am trying to go to the details of the MOSFET physics today, so that at least you can understand what are your prerequisites in order to derive the characteristics and get the inferences from the electrical properties, so on. So that's my initial level introduction, and let's go to the MOSFET fundamentals. So for that I will again start our journey of this lecture by making a recapitulation of our lecture 1, where we have discussed about we have mentioned that our system will be aluminum, silicon dioxide and silicon p-type, because that will have a severe advantage while we will go for the n-channel MOSFET. And I said at that time that I will discuss the details why I am taking the p-type MOSFET so far. So I have stopped my conversation regarding the substrate part at that time, but it's the time now really in order to discuss the details of the physics of MOSFET so far. So let me say that we have considered the same material system, that is the conducting part will be metal, the insulating part will be silicon dioxide, and the silicon will be your substrate part, and it is of the p-type. And naturally, one point I want to mention in this context, that this band diagram what I will draw here and I will explain is applicable for any sort of material composition. That's not for aluminum, silicon dioxide, silicon, but for our calculation point of view, the mathematical expressions what we should go for, the numerical problems, we generally consider this system so far, and that's why I have mentioned that. But you can very easily replace it is as a MOSFET, basically the MOS band diagram. And after that in the next slide I will introduce what MOSFET, how it will be eventually modified our 2-terminal devices into a 4-terminal devices, and what are the additional prerequisites for that. I will discuss everything step by step. So for now on I am starting to recapitulate our concepts of say MOS and MOSFET, and start with the diagram of the depletion condition. I think it's very simple for all that metal side voltage is greater than 0, or the conducting side voltage is greater than 0, but it should be small. So for the bands of the p-type semiconductor will bend downwards. I think the explanation is already provided in our lecture 1, but for your help let me recapitulate very briefly, because you are applying the positive voltage in the conducting material. So naturally for a single source, the negative side will be connected with the semiconducting material, and since it is a p-type substrate, so majority carriers are holes. So these holes will be attracted by the negative bias, and that's why the minority carriers in the semiconductor side, that means these are the electrons, they will be basically repelled. And how far these minority carriers can go? They can reach towards the interface of the insulating and semiconducting layer. And naturally, if those layers are in the interface, that means you are trying to increase the minority carrier concentration at the insulator semiconductor junction. And if this is the concentration, then what will happen, that the concentration or the effective concentration, it can be better said, that effective concentration of the majority carrier at that same interface will be decreased. And that's why if it is less p-type, then the gap between the Fermi level and valence band, that will increase. Now extrinsic Fermi level is a constant, so I can't bend it. So what I have to bend? I have to bend the valence band. And how could I increase the band gap near the junction? That I have to bend the valence band towards the away from the Fermi. So conduction band will bend towards the Fermi because you have to maintain the band gap constant. And that's the simplest explanation why also the intrinsic Fermi level, as it is almost at the middle of the semiconductor, so that will also bend with the same radius of curvature. And that's the simple explanation of the depletion region band diagram. That's a recapitulation, simple. So I am coming to the next case, that if you increase slightly the bias in the metal side and making it large, then what will happen, that the more carriers, more minority carriers, which are shown in the green color, they will be pushed because you have the more negative bias at the semiconductor side, and these minority carriers will be pushed. So if you give them more force, naturally these minority carriers will come towards the junction, and the concentration of the minority carriers at the semiconductor insulator interface will naturally enhance, and that means the junction will become less p-type compared to the depletion condition. And if it is less p-type, then the band will bend more, which is shown by the green color. So it will be shown by the pink color. So naturally you will find that more bending of the band. And if that is happened, then you will find a point where the intrinsic Fermi level will touch the extrinsic Fermi level, and I have said that this is the point of the inversion, that intersection point where the two Fermi levels touch each other, that will be called point of inversion. And naturally the first point of inversion, that will originate at the insulator semiconductor interface, and that's a very simple thing. There it will be touched. So if you make more carriers and more carriers, naturally the band will bend more. And what will be the result? There will be nothing new phenomenological change in the conduction and valence band, just it will bend more. But if you just concentrate your focus, your point of study at the point of inversion, I have said that previously, the point of inversion now starts to move towards the bulk region. That means before reaching to the junction, the intrinsic Fermi level, that will cross the extrinsic Fermi level, and that means you are getting the point of intersection inside the bulk region. But that doesn't mean you get this point very away or very far away from the intersection. But that's not the true, but you will get that at close to the junction, but not at the junction. That's my point of interpretation here. So you will get the point of inversion there, and if that happened, then I have also said that there are two potentials we have to define for analysis. One is called surface potential. Now what is the definition of surface potential? According to the figure as shown in the right side, the surface potential is nothing but the difference between intrinsic Fermi level and extrinsic Fermi level at the bulk region. Why at the bulk region? Because at that case they are parallel to each other, and naturally you are getting this, that is called the bulk potential or the Fermi potential. But what will be the surface potential? The total bending of the intrinsic Fermi level, that is called the surface potential, mind it, when it is measured at the junction. So naturally, if you just make a vis-a-vis comparative study between the depletion condition and the inversion condition, then the surface potential will naturally less compared to the Fermi potential in depletion condition. If you go for point of inversion at junction, then surface potential becomes equal to Fermi potential. If you go for inversion condition, then surface potential becomes greater than the Fermi potential because of the bending of the intrinsic Fermi level higher. And that's a very simple thing, and it is shown as a green circular patch at the background, and you will get that. So this is the inversion condition. Now, I am explaining this diagram in a different light. Now please look, I am trying to draw a vertical line parallel to the insulator or the conductor band. This is a hypothetical line which will pass to the point of inversion. So what it means? Again I am repeating, I am drawing a hypothetical line which is parallel to my insulating or conducting region, and it passes through the point of inversion. So, if you look at the region between junction means the interface of semiconductor and insulator, up to the hypothetical vertical line, then that portion which I have shaded with a particular color, that portion, if you just look the orientation of the band, just look from vertical. First is conduction band EC, then is the extrinsic Fermi level EF, then is the intrinsic Fermi level, that is EFI, and next is the valence band, that is EV. Now what does it mean? It simply means this type of band orientation you naturally observe for N-type semiconductor. And if you look from hypothetical line towards the bulk, then the orientation of the band is conduction band, then intrinsic Fermi, then extrinsic Fermi, then valence band. So naturally this is the band of the p-type semiconductor. So what we will find that one N-type region and another p-type region is formed, and that's why it is called inversion. If you look out more details, naturally I have explained this, but now I want to introspect and I want to go into more details, just digging the soils more. Why? Because if you now look, you will find and think in your mind, just you are making a part of p-type semiconductor into N-type without doping, just by application of bias. And since these are the two different points, so how many now layers you can assume? Naturally, I have taken three materials, one conductor, one insulator, and one semiconductor, fine. But now, a part of the insulating material, semiconducting material is changed by nature. So, may I consider this is a hypothetical or virtual, better to say, virtual four-layer structure, conductor, insulator, thin N-type region and thick p-type region. So under inversion condition, whether it is weak inversion or whether it is strong inversion doesn't matter, because just weak or strong means the what will be the position of the intersection point of the Fermi levels, whether the point of inversion is close to the interface or more away from the interface, that's all. But if you look out, it's a virtually four-layer structure. Or if you have a problem, just imagine and rotate the structure by 90 degrees. So you will find that at the top, it will be conductor. Then you will find one insulating layer. Beneath that, you will find one N-type. Naturally, it's an N-type semiconducting layer. And beneath that, our known P-type substrate. So if that situation arises, then I am trying to look it layer by layer. This is our normal semiconducting substrate. On the top, I am going an N-type region. Assume the substrate is P-type. If the substrate is N-type, then the region, thinner region will be P-type. On the top, I am going an insulating layer. On the top, I am making one conductor. And as per the MOS capacitor, this is my biasing arrangement. Conductor is positive and substrate is negative for making inversion. So fine, up to that we have no problem. This is our known structure, and that's why we have given the biasing concepts. So there will be no ambiguity, I think, at all if you proceed up to this point. Now look very carefully. I have made two N plus region on this thinner N layer, where, please look out, these two N plus regions you have to make either diffusion or ion implantation. So that portion should not be covered by your insulating layer. And in that region, I have made two heavily doped N region. So what is N plus means of the order of 10 to the power 26 per meter cube, very close. And N means 10 to the power 20 or approximately per meter cube. So what will happen? Again, I am repeating, I have developed two N plus regions into either sides. So what will happen if you just give some biasing arrangement between them? Any one can be made positive and any one can be made negative. That means instead of a single bias, I am using a pair of electrical connections. One is already available as per this figure in the vertical, that is your MOS capacitor bias. Another new biasing connection we have made between two N plus regions, and naturally that may be considered as the horizontal bias. So if you find these things, then it's a 4-layer structure with two different biases, and this structure will be work as a transistor, and that's why it will be called MOSFET. Let me go into slightly more details. Till now it's a MOS structure, no doubt about that. But now I am applying a pair of horizontal bias. So the portion of N plus which is negative, it will try to repel the electrons, very simple, and from the N plus region it goes into the channel which is N, and naturally it will move very slowly. Depending on the bias, it can be moved very fast, and ultimately it will reach towards the N plus region with positive bias, because that will attract. So what you will get? You can't get any continuous current flow or conduction flow in the vertical direction by virtue of the presence of insulating layer. It's very simple to understand. But by making two N plus region in this inversion portion, or inverted portion better to say, and by implementing or incorporating an additional pair of bias, we can send these carriers from negative N plus region to positive N plus region. That means we are able to make a continuous carrier transport in the horizontal direction, whereas the vertical direction transport is still restricted. Now, this transport is made by or owing to the external bias. So naturally, external bias controls it, and the region over which the carriers move is the region or the length which is under or beneath of the insulating layer, or in a more subtle way, it's the difference or the length difference actually between the two n plus regions. So that's why we are getting a field effect device. Why field effect? Because the voltage divided by length, that gives you electric field. So it's a field effect device. Now in this device, we are transferring carriers from one region to another region, and by virtue of the movement, we will get current. So naturally, this is nothing but transfer of carriers, and for which the resistance can be changed. So it can be called as a transistor action, and this action is initiated and will be totally controlled by the external field. So I can consider it as a field effect transistor, or it's a FET. Very simply, I have tried to explain what FET is. And this is not a simple FET. The total FET propagation, or that means the carrier propagation inside the FET, is controlled vertically by the original MOS capacitor structure. So the device can be distinguished with respect to JFET in the name of MOSFET. And that's the origin of the name MOSFET of this device. So from here, it's very simple to all that MOSFET is nothing but a 4-terminal device where the conducting layer, which is at the top, is called as gate. The substrate, which is at the bottom, is called body, and the two highly doped regions between which the carriers are transported are called source and drain respectively, where source is that region from which the carriers start to flow, and drain is the region where carriers are collected. So naturally, if you give P as a substrate, then source and drain will be N plus region, and drain has the positive bias and source has the negative bias. So that will give you the concept of an N-channel MOSFET, or alternatively, it is shortly called N-MOSFET. So I think up to this point, we have clearly explained, tried to make it as simple as possible, how N-MOSFET is formed. So, is it possible to make a P-MOSFET? Yes, it is. What's the difference? The body, instead of P-type, it will become N-type. Channel, instead of N, it will become P. And source will be positive and drain will be negative. Gate will be negative and body will be positive. So I am showing the biases. Body and channel I think I have not mentioned because it's very simple to understand, and because I have also explained in my lecture 1 what is PMOS is. So I am not going into that format. So body will be P for N-MOSFET and body will be N for P-MOSFET. So that's the structural difference with electrical connection for P-MOSFET as well as for N-MOSFET. Now we will come to the different modes of operation of both N-channel and P-channel MOSFET. And you know that there are two modes of operation. One will be called depletion mode, another will be called enhancement mode. How they can be nomenclatured? What is meant by enhancement and what is meant by depletion? Depletion means it is naturally on, and enhancement means it is naturally off. So, better to understand enhancement first as per our band diagram. If you make gate voltage negative for an N channel, that means P body MOSFET, naturally it will not conduct. If you make gate voltage 0, then the capacitive action yet to make, so naturally it will remain off. But for positive gate voltage, it starts to work, obviously under inversion condition. But depletion is normally on, so whether gate voltage 0 or positive, it starts to contribute, but it is remaining off when gate voltage is negative. The reverse is applicable for P-channel MOSFET, that means N region, N body. Naturally, for negative gate voltage, it will work for enhancement mode, but for other conditions, it will remain off, whereas for positive gate voltage only, the P-channel depletion MOSFET will remain off, whereas for other conditions, it will remain on. So that's the case of, I think I can say for P-channel and N-channel, and depletion and enhancement mode. So instead of writing so many detailed things, I have just tried to explain using a single tabular form so that you can understand it very quickly. So symbolically, if something is on or off, naturally enhancement mode is typically off, so the drain, body and source will be shown in a three discrete manners, whereas it will be continuous if I go for depletion mode of MOSFET, which is normally on. But naturally, if you can make normally on, if you can go for on condition, you can add them, but this is the standard symbol, and I have shown one line that body and source are sorted. So what will be the reason behind it, I will explain just a little bit more after 2 or 3 slides, but that's the symbolic representation of N and P MOSFET I am shown in here. So next comes to the case of why MOSFET is considered as a 3-terminal device, and the answer is body effect. So what is that? And naturally, according to the last page, that if I just go back slightly, you will find that if body and source are sorted, naturally instead of 4-terminal, any device can work as a 3-terminal. So what is the reason that a MOSFET can work as a 3-terminal device? So let me explain in more details that body is a P-type and source and drain are N-type, and naturally the biases for N-channel MOSFET. Now make it more clear. If you look out the drain and body, only drain and body part, that means it's a PN junction and it will form a diode. Obviously it's virtual, but it's a PN junction, so it can be equivalently considered as a diode. Now the N region is positive and P region is negative, so the diode is reverse biased. So reverse biased means small current, say of the order of nanoampere, is flowing from drain to body. Obviously, it's a leakage current, should not be desirable, but can be neglected because it doesn't make any harm to our actual current, which is flowing in the horizontal direction between the source and body. So we may I can say that leave it go on nanoampere current, whereas the order of current is milliampere, doesn't contribute too much. Again, look at the same concept in the source and body. Source is also N plus and body is P, so there will be another virtual diode formation. Now the concept is that source is negatively biased, and since it is negatively biased, so if the body is 0 or body is lower bias compared to source, then the diode may be forward biased. And if that happened, then a very large amount of current will start to flow towards the insulating thickness through the channel, that is the distance between the source and drain. But if that flows, then the dielectric layer, if that can't protect, then this current will go to the gate region and the MOS structure will be totally demolished. So we have to reduce this current, and better to make the current as negligible as possible. So one alternative is that make source positive, very fine, then body will remain negative and source positive. But if you make source positive, then source and drain both are positive, so you can't get the desired horizontal current flow. So that option is eliminated. The only other option is source make more negative compared to body. The question will be how negative? If you make source more negative, then what will happen? Then there will be more forward current flow. Then the another option only left, that as per Ohm's law, if you want to make zero current between two terminals, better to short them. So that if you have a PN junction, that means if you short it, then naturally the potential of both the terminals becomes same. And if you know that Ohm's law, the current flows due to the potential difference I proportional to VA minus VB if A and B are 2 points. So if the potential become equal between the 2 points, then the difference of potential is 0 and I becomes 0. So if I sort between the N plus region and the body, that means source and body, so what will happen, that the large forward bias current which may occur, that can be very easily nullified. But instead of when I am making that, you will find that now it has 3 terminals: gate, drain and source, because body is sorted with source. So naturally this MOSFET becomes a 3-terminal device. And similar, the concept is applicable for P MOSFET also. Only difference is body is N and drain and source are P plus. So if you consider the drain and body, there is a virtual diode formation, but drain is negative and body is positive. So naturally the current flows from body to drain is negligibly small. It's a reverse leakage current. You can't nullify all sort of leakage current. It's virtually impossible. And so if you have this leakage current, you may tolerate it. But similar diode is formed between source and body, and naturally source is positive, and if it is very high, then it can drive the current towards the body. That means a large vertical current again starts to flow. Again, it's undesirable. So you can either make source negative, but if you make both source and drain negative, naturally it will be short circuited, so you can't get any current flow. So what you will naturally do, you have to make a connection between source and body again in order to nullify the current. And again the device becomes a 3-terminal device. So MOSFET, when we will go from the next day onwards, we will consider for application for the device calculation the characteristics. For circuit level application, MOSFET is a 3-terminal device, source, gate, drain. Because body is connected with source, whether it is P MOSFET and N MOSFET. And I will show it when I will also go for the other calculations naturally. And if body is not connected, if there is a potential difference between source and body, what are the other factors that can arise, I will also explain in my lecture 5 related with the threshold voltage change, and that's one of the important factor. And one point may be remembered at that concept, that channel is the distance between source and drain so far now, but the actual definition of the channel we will consider in class 6. That means a series 6 lecture of this MOSFET. So I think I have tried to explain the body effect for both N-type MOSFET as well as P-type MOSFET, and I have explained why MOSFET, instead of a 4-terminal device, it becomes a 3-terminal device one, and that one of the very important factor related with the MOSFET applications. and we have shown how a MOSFET is formed from a MOS capacitor structure, what are the additional materials and biasing connections required, and why it is really desirable in order to get the flow of current. Naturally, people are getting vertical flow of current and horizontal flow of current, beg your pardon, and vertical direction bias basically works as a capacitive action. So that completes the fundamentals of MOSFET, and I think we have know what body effect is, what are the important parts of the MOSFET, what are the points where we can apply bias, and naturally from the next class onwards we will consider the enhancement mode MOSFET, and our next two class will totally depend on the enhancement mode MOSFET. We won't go for the depletion mode, and later if time permits I will discuss again in terms of the discussion that why enhancement mode is more preferred compared to the depletion mode and what are their advantages. And thank you all so far. So this is the small foundation lecture of the MOSFET, and from the next day on we will go for the electrical characteristics of the MOSFET. Thank you all.